Welcome to Robert Bellissimo at the Movies. This is a YouTube video podcast where we explore all things cinema. I want to welcome to the show Andy Wolverton, who is a writer, reader, movie programmer, and the author of Men Don't Read. He also hosts a wonderful YouTube channel called Journeys in Darkness and Lights. Andy, welcome. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Robert. I'm really honored to be on the show. I mean, you've had a lot of great guests. The bar is really high.
Well, no, I appreciate that, and I appreciate that you checked out some of my work, and like I said, I also really enjoyed your website and you got a fantastic YouTube channel, and I got to read you this book, Men Don't Read. I love that title alone, and
Yeah,
that
yeah,
that was your experience as a librarian because you were a librarian, and people would always say, "Oh, men don't read." Is that right? It's interesting.
yeah. That's exactly what happened, and I just set out to disprove that because I
Right.
knew I knew men were coming in and checking out books, hopefully for themselves, but maybe not.
Right.
But yeah, it was just about that journey, and hopefully to inspire other people to, men and women, kids, to start book clubs or be a part of a book club,
Yeah.
just to engage with other people about reading, just like we're doing with film.
Right, right. Fantastic. Well, I'll have to check that out. Um, I always ask people who come on for the first time when it's a film noir movie because everybody has a different sort of definition or take on what film noir is. So I was curious, what does film noir mean to you?
Oh boy, that's a tough question.
I know that's a loaded one, but
It is a loaded one. And I would have to say that um, my mother's the one that introduced me to film noir. I made a short video about how that happened, but
yeah, I
she was
love that.
always, yeah. Oh, okay,
I
good.
love that.
Thanks for
Yeah, it's
checking
really
that
good.
out.
Yeah,
And I kind of was kicking and screaming to get into the classic movies, and she said, "Look, just watch this movie. It's called The Maltese Falcon." And I reluctantly did, but once I got into it, I was fascinated by the fact that everybody in this film is lying. They're all in it for themselves.
yes.
And that just fascinated me as a teenager because, teenagers are all in it for themselves generally at some point, on some level.
Right.
So for me, but now how to define film noir? I mean, I think there has to be a crime involved. There doesn't necessarily have to be a femme fatale, fedoras, neon lit streets, rain soaked streets, high contrast lighting, but the crime has to be there. And for me, there has to be a feeling of you can't win.
Right.
The world is against you, and what are you going to do about it?
Mm.
So for me, those are fascinating things that I like to explore.
Well, I really like that video you made about because which I don't really have to ask you because I usually ask people when did you first see it, but now I know that because you made a video about when you first saw it, your mother pulled your arm and forced you to see it, and you weren't really interested, understandably as a teenager. And then you got really into the film. I was curious because I remember when I first saw it. I can't remember exactly when it was, but I remember my experience of it and I didn't initially take to it. I actually found it dull initially and confusing. And I can see why that you really can't watch this movie once. You got to watch it, I think, two or three times just to really kind of sink your teeth into it because there's so much going on. And like you said, there's so much lying going on. And the audience doesn't always necessarily know if people are lying really kind of till you piece it together in the end. My experience, anyways. So, did you, when watching it as a teenager, were you confused at all, or did you just really get into it?
I was totally confused, and it started at the beginning when
Yeah,
you got all the script about the Maltese Falcon and Malta and
yeah,
whatever year it was, and this movie is really a tough entry point in some ways for people just getting into film noir because there's so much talking.
oh yeah, yeah,
It is just pervasive, and especially when Bridget O'Shaughnessy comes to the office to meet Spade for the first time, she's just letting this yarn out about her sister and Thursby and all these. It's impossible to keep up with the
yeah,
very first time you see it. You
yeah,
just can't do it. But
right,
so you just kind of roll with it, and things start to come together. But you're exactly right. This is a film you really do need to revisit at least one more time,
yeah,
just so you get as much as you can.
yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. And the film just really comes at you also, I find. Like I mean, Houston and all the people involved, from the editing to the cinematography, the acting, it's all just done so well because the rhythm and the pacing is so fast. Because there are so many moving parts. We see Bridget O'Shaughnessy coming in initially because her sister is missing, and she thinks that this guy is with her, and that something's not right there. To then his partner, Bogart's partner, Sam Spade, goes to check it out, and he gets killed. And then we find out that she was lying the whole time. And then we have everything about, Sydney Greenstreet and Peter Lorre coming to have Sam Spade look for the bird. And then there are so many things that happen. Then this murder happens where this guy comes who's shot, and he's holding the black bird, who is the captain of the boat at the end. We also find out about this affair between Sam Spade and his partner's wife. Then there's the love. He's clearly falling for Bridget, Sam Spade as well. So there are so many moving parts. And again, of course, the lying, and Sam Spade is also lying intentionally because he's thinking on his feet often of how to get out of this, or how to solve this. And then at the same time, we have the cops are suspicious.
Right.
They think that he killed this guy. See, this is the thing. There are so many characters. It's Thurwall, right? No, Thalberg.
Thursby.
Thursby. God.
Yeah.
I know. I have so many notes here with so many characters. It's such an interesting experience, and for me, it almost puts you not quite in the shoes of Sam Spade, because he doesn't really also know what's going on right away. But in a way, you're sort of kept in the dark. But Sam Spade is also such a smart guy that he is one step of everyone, including the audience, to the point where we're not really sure whether he's telling the truth, because he seems to want to be in on this later on, especially when he clues in that clearly these guys are killers. It's such a unique experience, but what was that also how you felt, just that Spade is ahead of even us, whereas most films you're sort of at least with the protagonist, so you're not that confused. I don't know if that was how you felt.
Part of what I felt that I can remember from back then, because I still experience it somewhat, and I look at it as if I'm a teenager again. You're right. Spade is able to absorb all this information so quickly. He's one or two steps ahead of the typical person he would have to deal with, the
Right.
typical miscreant he would have to deal with. But Bridget is a professional. Gutman is a professional. They think so quickly, and their lies are so easily coming out of them. And he knows that they're lying. Some of that is lying. Even Bridget said to one of his questions, he said, "How much of that was true?" And she says, not much at all.
Right.
So he knows she's lying. It's just how much is she lying?
Right.
But the ability of him to be able to process all that speaks to, first of all, his experience as a detective. Second of all, to the cynicism that this film and the novel was a part of. We always talk about what life was like for returning World War II veterans, but we also need to talk about the gap between World War I and World War II, which this is set in, and that experience of kind of a ethical relativism, that what is really true, what we fought the war, we came back, we don't feel as good as we should have. What is it about is this feeling of angst, and this feeling we talked about before of cynicism. All of that is part of who Sam Spade is. So he's taking all this information knowing that some of it's going to be a lie. He understands that. That's a given. But like you said, his ability to think on his feet so quickly,
Right.
and this barrage of information coming is just amazing. And plus, we're building characters too. We see Wilmer, we see Gutman, we see Joel Cairo. They're all feeding stuff.
Yeah.
It's really amazing.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And, it's interesting because Hammett said something really interesting because he, as I'm sure you know, was also a private detective in real life. And I read here that he wrote here about Spade. Spade has no original. He is a dream man in the sense that he is what most of the private detectives I worked with would like to have been, and in their cockier moments thought they approached. And I thought that sounds, that sounds about right to me because he's like he's so intelligent. I mean, it's almost hard to believe how intelligent he is, how street smart he is, how ahead of everyone he is. And but at the same time, he still is he has his share of flaws. I mean, for one thing, like I mentioned, we after his partner dies, he doesn't seem to be too upset about it, and I thought, well, that's interesting. And then we find out about this affair he's having with his partner's wife, and he's even patronizing towards her. At a certain point, he's just like, all right, now run along. And this thing, it doesn't just seem to mean all that much to him. And then at the same time, this danger he's in, he seems to sort of find these things thrilling. I mean, there's even a line that he says to Bridget, where I'm not quoting directly, but she says something like, "I hope this isn't too much trouble," and he's sort of like, "Oh well, a healthy dose of trouble is fine,"
Right.
or something along those lines. But he's always laughing his way through these things, and he seems to be enjoying these things. And then it occurred to me that, and I don't know how you felt about this, once he knew she was lying right as soon as she came in, because as he said, she paid too much money to be telling the truth. Um, and then, but yet, when he sees her again, she won't tell him everything. And then he's still catching her in lies. He sees through her. He's laughing at her. And yet he still continues to work for her. Now, could we say that this is because he's finding an attraction for her? Is it because he is thinking I can get more money out of her? Because all of a sudden he's like, how much money do you have? $500. Give it to me.
Give it to me.
you
I
know,
love that.
or is it, again a combination of his thrills of getting into danger? I mean, I was curious what you felt those motives were there.
I think you're definitely right about him feeling something for Bridget as this thing develops. But I think also part of it is when he realizes what the Falcon could mean to him financially, even if he could just get a cut of it, that starts being something that attracts him as well. And we see that played out when Captain Jacoby drops it off,
Right.
and he gets very excited and he grabs Effie's arm and he says, "We got it, Angel, we got it." And she says, "Sam, you're hurting me." Because he's now obsessed with this thing. And who knows if how much of that is Bridget, how much of it is financial, and how much of it is just the quest for adventure to
Right.
to get this thing. But it's clearly affecting him, and it's affected all of the characters.
Right.
So yeah, as far as his motivation, and what's really interesting is at the end where he talks about, when your partner is killed, you should do something about it.
Right.
That seems to be like not even on his radar through most of the
Right.
picture. He's just trying to figure out what's going on.
Right. Yeah, it's ambiguous as to, exactly what his motives are, what he's thinking and feeling, which is, again, it's a more, for me, and I'm sure you'd agree, it's a more interesting viewing experience when we're just not fed everything in a simple way. But correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure know the film better than I do, but it's interesting because when he initially meets the fat man after Cairo approaches him, this is an interesting scene to me because he says he knows where the bird is, and then all of a sudden he just starts to scream and yell at them, and he's like, either you're in on this deal or you're out, and he breaks glass and he storms out, and then he's laughing outside. And I thought,
Yes.
he doesn't really know where the bird is. And I thought, is he just saying that because he's trying to get them to give him more money when he starts to realize how valuable this thing is? Is that what you think is going on there? I wasn't sure.
I think it's a combination of a couple of things, and I love that scene.
It's a great
By the
scene.
way, I love it. I think part of it is his impatience that, this guy's just feeding me a lot of BS here. I want to get to the heart of the thing
Right.
because Bridget's not giving me the story. She's giving me the runaround. And now this fat guy's giving me the runaround too. I want to get to the point. I want to learn something that's going to help me get to, a resolution of this thing. But I think you're totally right. He's definitely putting on an act
Yeah.
because after he slams the door, he's smiling at himself. But what I love is he's got that little tremble in his hand
Mm,
also that he's worked himself up into this thing, that he's putting on his own act because he feels that Gutman's putting on an act as well. So turnabout is fair play. But no, I love that scene because it does give you a look into his character that, again, as we talked about before, he's a couple of moves ahead of everybody, even if he doesn't have Gutman's information yet.
right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's really compelling, and it's interesting because when I initially, and I think other people have said similar things, which is I think is kind of the wrong way to look at it. But when I initially saw Mary Astor's performance as Bridget O'Shaughnessy, I thought, oh well, she's so sort of theatrical and over the top. But that's really the point, is that she's lying, but she's not a very good liar, because
Right.
or perhaps he is just he's so great at detecting bullshit, because there were times where I thought she was telling the truth, but then he's he's laughing at her and he's like, "You're good, you are good, you're
Yeah,
dangerous,"
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
then at the end, when they fall in love, and then she says that she does love him, we don't even know if that's true. He doesn't even know if it's true. And so I can't think of many films where a character literally lies the entire film and we don't really know
Yeah,
if
yeah, we don't.
anything is true. The when she gets into a fight with Cairo, I felt that was like probably a real genuine reaction from her,
Yeah,
quite
yeah.
fiery. But it's a wonderful performance because she is really good at just lying badly, which in because I'm an actor myself, and I think that, to be like, oh, I have to now do this basically in a fake way. It would
Hmm.
be,
Hmm.
that's actually harder than it looks or sounds. Was that your impression of her performance?
I used for a long time when I first saw the film, and then I watched it again, probably as a, you know, still a young person in my 20s. I always thought that Mary Astor was the weakest link in the cast.
Right.
I've, since changed my mind. She may be the strongest link in the cast. And I want to point back to the very first time that she meets Spade. I think one of the things that's important in this film that I've neglected until the last time I saw it is what is happening when people are not talking and there's no music playing. So when Bridget first comes into the office, you can see very quickly she and Spade are sizing each other up. The way she
Right.
looks at him, the way he looks at her. And when she's telling the story to Spade and Archer, she rarely looks in his face. She rarely
Ah,
makes eye contact until she starts to talk about Thursby. Because at
right.
that point, she's telling the truth, or she's telling parts of the truth.
Right.
So I think she's absolutely brilliant in this.
I
And like you
agree.
said,
Yeah.
that last scene where she thinks that, maybe there's a chance that he's not gonna, throw me over.
Right.
And then he does, and she's just undone.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
the tears in her eyes. I mean, I think that was really genuine because she knows it's over for her. There's nothing that she can say or do, because he's now told the cops what, the crimes that she's committed and the murder she committed. Um and 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 again, I mean, what a great shot where the elevator door closes, and of course it looks just like bars in a jail cell.
Yes, yes.
And just again, the tears in her eyes. I mean, it's a really wonderful performance, perhaps an undervalued performance when we look back at film history. But yeah, I thought she was great, and of course, Sydney Greenstreet and um, oh my God, there's so many, Peter Lorre. Sorry, how could I
Mhm,
forget
mhm.
his name? They're so wonderful together, and I know they did a number of films together. Of course, they're both in Casablanca, and I remember a couple of years ago seeing The Celluloid Closet for the first time, and they one of the what in that book and in the documentary, they point to the fact that this suggested that they might be lovers, the two of
Mhm.
them. And you see that when he comes in, the Bogart smells what is that, like something like a calling card? It was like gardenia.
Yeah, it was his calling card, I think, or
Yeah.
it would have been like a business card, we would call it.
Right, right. And it smell gardenia is like I imagine like a perfume or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That's how much I know about perfume. You know,
Me neither.
yeah, and I just love how he's like, oh, gardenia, and then he, so it's just these little suggestions. And what I
Yeah,
thought was
yeah.
interesting was that here are these guys, they have been looking for years for this bird, and then what we see at the end, of course, is when they finally get their hands on it, it's a fake. And I love Lorre when he snaps and he's just loses it on Greenstreet. And then when Greenstreet at first looks like the life has gone out of his face, and
Oh, I know.
very quickly, he's like, "Well, let's just keep looking. We can't just keep insulting each other." And then Lori as well is like, "I will go with you. I will continue." So there's a couple of ways that I think one can look at it is, they're just so attached to one another if they are lovers or something, or they're just or a combination of that, or they are so corrupted, which you see in a lot of greed comes through in a lot of these film noir movies, um, and obsessed with this bird because of what it may be worth, and they are spending their life wasting their life. Well, because the bird, I
Mhm,
think, in a
mhm.
way, really is just a sign of just a waste. I mean, it doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
yeah,
None of this
yeah,
at the end, none of this stuff matters. The history of it does none of it matters.
yeah.
I mean, people have compared it to like the MacGuffin, which you see in the Hitchcock films. It launches the story. I mean, it sort of does. It's not the only thing that launches it, but I think that's true to an extent. And I found that relationship, there's so many things that you can lean into. I mean, I was curious what you felt about the two of them. I mean, what was the nature of their relationship?
Before I get to that, I want to tell you and people that are watching also, if they have never heard this, they should find it's probably on one of his podcasts. Gilbert Gottfried did an amazing
Oh,
impression of Peter Lorre,
oh,
and that
really?
scene that you're talking about
Oh, is that
is
right?
absolutely perfect if you can track it down.
I
Uh,
think I heard that. I heard some impression, someone doing it. So that must have been him, and he sounded just like him.
oh my gosh, it is nailed. It's right on target. Uh, yeah, there's clearly Cairo is being portrayed as a gay person as much as you could do that in
Yeah,
1941 American films. I think he clearly is, and you can make a case that probably Gutman is as well. Just some of the mannerisms that he makes,
right,
that he does, and then you could also make a case also that Wilmer is as well.
right.
Uh,
I've
you
heard
know,
that as well.
and if there was a love triangle going on there, maybe that's part of that. But it is interesting that you mentioned that where Cairo just loses it and just starts calling Gutman all these terrible names, and then uh, he says, "Well, I'm going after it." And he says, "You are? Can I come along?" It's so pathetic, but it's funny too, and it's
Yeah,
touching in a way too.
yeah,
That
it
that
is.
that he's not going to give up on him. But I'm glad you mentioned that too about is this the ultimate MacGuffin? And I wonder if it is because we have to keep in mind that no one in the film has actually seen the real
Right.
Maltese Falcon, not even Gutman. I mean, he's learned a lot about it. He knows all these facts, the history, and the statue he's been chasing was the one that was acquired by that Russian general, Kimedov, I think is his name.
Right.
So it's very possible they could be pursuing something that doesn't even
Yeah,
exist.
exactly.
But yeah, but like you said, they're devoting their lives and putting themselves in great danger
Right.
to get this thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And Greenstreet, I didn't realize this was his first film performance. And what a performance, because he plays it as this very charming, calm man. Like he just looks like someone's uncle or grandfather. You just want to have a drink or a coffee with him. I mean, he's so just even at the end when he says goodbye to Bogart, it's as if they just had like a nice lunch meal together.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I just
We'll
thought,
see it.
I don't know how much of that was by design or if that's just how he came across as a result of interacting with the other actors, but I just thought he was really, really good in this film. I mean, what are your feelings about him in this?
I was astounded when I learned that that was his first film, and I think he was 61 years old. Of course,
Wow.
he'd had a stage career as well.
Yeah,
But I had heard just recently, I heard a story, and you may have heard it too, that during between takes, he would always go over to Mary Astor and ask her to hold his hand because he
really.
was so nervous
Oh,
because
wow.
this was his first
Oh
film.
my God.
But none of that comes across in the performance, right? I mean, it's
Mm,
just amazing that he is in total control. And he has a lot of dialogue and he delivers it
yeah,
so convincingly.
fantastic.
So I love his performance.
Oh, me too. And then of course you touched on Elijah Cook Jr. I mean, if you're ever in doubt whether something is a noir or not, if Elijah Cook Jr. is in it, then it probably is. But I found him quite menacing. But you know, I heard some other people felt, well, he's someone who's just really kind of trying to be tough, that he's not truly tough, or at least that's the way Spade sees it. Or maybe Spade is so tough that nothing intimidates him. Because I mean, this got that great hard boiled detective dialogue as well. Like when he says, I'm probably not quoting it directly, but he says to Spade, I told you to shove off. You know, I love that little pause. And
Yeah.
then, but Spade just treats him like an absolute joke, which infuriates him.
Mhm.
And you know, even when he's tailing him, and then he gets rid of him very easily. Which I thought, well, how tough can this guy be if he's just walks away just because, um, you know, he called a cop over or whatever. And then even I mean, he had plenty of chances to knock him out later or something, and he didn't do anything until they poisoned him, and then he's unconscious, and then he kicks him in the
And
head,
then
you
he kicks
know.
him in the head.
um, but he's so kind of, you know, creepy and cold in it. But I thought he was really, really wonderful. What was your feeling about him in this film?
That's the first time I can remember ever seeing Elisha Cook Jr., except I may have seen him. He's in a original Star Trek episode where he plays
Oh,
a lawyer. And that may have been the first, but I saw him in this, but I've never seen him in a role like this. A lot of times he plays a sad sack or a guy that's,
yeah.
married to the wrong woman, like Marie Windsor and the,
Oh, and The Killing.
the Killing. Yeah.
Yeah,
But every time I watch the Maltese Falcon, I try to look for something that I haven't seen before.
right.
And this time I watched it, and toward the end, where Bogart's trying to get him to take the fall, and he says, "Get up! I've had enough of you." And I looked at that speech, and Wilmer is actually crying
Oh, wow, I
during
didn't
that
notice
speech.
that.
Yeah, it's just a little bit of a tear, but you can see it, and it's really funny and tragic in a way that uh, Gutman gives Wilmer his own "I've had enough of you" speech when he says, "Well, if you lose a son, it's possible to get another. There's only
Oh
one
God,
Maltese
yeah.
Falcon."
Oh my God, yeah,
Can
yeah.
you
Just
imagine hearing that from
yeah,
somebody? Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Oh, absolutely. It's just an ultimate betrayal.
yeah.
Which again is a very common noir theme. And they just again, it sort of plays comedically that, you know, again, you know, these things happen so quickly that clearly Spade. I had to watch that scene a few times because because he's talking about wanting a fall guy for these to blame these murders on. And then I thought, okay, so he's trying to save himself, and then he's, you know, trying to get in on this, you know, to get money for this bird. And then it occurred to me, oh wait, no, he's just trying to find evidence against them because he figures that they must have done it, or get to the bottom of it all with Bridget,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he does it in such a remarkable way. I mean, the way in which he gets them to just confess everything because they think he's on their side, but he is not on their side. And you don't really know that
Mhm.
until really the end when he turns her in. But it very quickly transitions to the story between him and her of when
Yeah,
he's torn about what to do with her because he's in love with her. That there's no time to dwell, there's no time to breathe. Was that also your impression of that last
Yes,
note?
the way that that ending is put together is just absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
And as you said, because so many things are wrapped up so quickly, I mean, it can make your head
Yes.
spin. But the thing that I think one aspect of that is Spade is making sure because Dundee and Polehouse think that he is at least responsible for one of these murders,
Right.
maybe
Right.
Thursby, maybe even Archer. And he knows that in order to clear himself, he's got to tie up all of these loose ends, which gives it some urgency there at the end. So he's making sure that all of his bases are covered. Bridget's going over for killing Archer. Uh, you know, Wilmer is going over for killing Thursby, and Captain Jacoby setting fire to the boat. Everything is wrapped up, and he
Right.
knows. The one thing that bothers me is wouldn't Gutman have known he was walking into a trap as soon as he left? Because he knows Bogart's got a phone right there. That's kind of bothered
Right.
me. I don't know if
Yeah.
it's bothered you.
Well, I thought he had convinced them that they were on his side
Mhm.
because he's this elaborate plan of a fall guy. And I think they think he wants in on this bird. But yeah, you might be right because at that point the bird is fake, so they have to keep looking for the bird. So why would you trust a private detective? I think that's a good point. I didn't think of that.
But
Um,
my only answer to that would be that he's now so focused on getting the bird again that he can't see anything else. He's got tunnel vision.
Possible, yeah,
So
yeah,
so maybe I'm not sure.
yeah.
But yeah, those last 15 minutes in that apartment, if you want to learn how to write, I
Yeah.
think screenwriting, those last 15 minutes are just brilliant. The way that's handled, the way that Huston directs it, uh, obviously the way it's acted is just incredible.
Yeah.
And I love. We talked about Bridget going into the elevator and the steel bars and everything, but another thing I had not noticed until I saw it this last time was that at the end, Spade is just spouting out, okay, she killed Miles. They did this, they did that, and Sam won't even put Bridget's coat on her shoulders. He has
Oh,
Dundee.
I
He
didn't know
has
that.
Dundee do it. Yeah, Dundee
Yeah.
does it, and he just kind of like tosses it on her back, like you're not even worth,
Oh God.
you
Yeah.
know, my giving any kind of chivalrous activity to you.
Right.
So
Right.
there's so many little things that you pick up on
Yeah.
each time. It's just such a brilliant film.
Well, I forgot that Ward Bond was in it. It's always a little hard for me to watch Ward Bond because of the fact that he supported the blacklist.
Yeah,
And I've interviewed Robert Ryan's son a few times, Cheney Ryan,
I
one of
watched
his.
that one.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, he just came back
did
last
the
week.
setup right. Yeah,
Yes, to talk about
yeah,
the setup, and he said Robert Ryan hated Ward Bond so much, but he's a good act. I mean, he's in in this film and in so many of the Ford films. Um, of course, he's in It's a Wonderful Life.
yeah.
He's a really good actor. But oh, just reading about him politically, he was really. I also heard he was a big social climber and things like that. But
Mhm.
he was good in it. I mean, I enjoy watching him. I just have to kind of forget about
Yeah, yeah.
try to forget about all that history. I wanted to touch a little bit of the style on the film because again, it's a noir. Not all noir movies use the German expressionism, and this one doesn't. We have the low key lighting, but it's to me it is blocked so beautifully because, like you said, it's very dialogue heavy. And so I you could really do it as a stage play, and not that it feels like they just shot it like that. But I was watching an interview with a director who adapted a play to a film, and he said one of the things he did was keep the characters always doing something, having props, moving, blocking, not unnecessarily, but keep it interesting, so they're not just sitting and talking. And this film I thought did that really really well because they seem to get up and move at the right moments, whether they're just standing at the fire or going for a drink, and the camera moves at all these perfect moments. And again, the speed helps so much that you kind of forget how heavy it is on dialogue. The only shot that I felt really popped that I think he was clearly saying something with was with when him and his partner sit down at the desks and they're so far apart at the beginning. Again, that distance spoke volumes, because I think that obviously was the nature of, they seemed to get along, but under the surface, of course, what we find out is that he's having an affair with his wife, and he even gives him a dirty look, Bogart, because he was like, "Why are you flirting?" You know, clearly, like, you're flirting with this woman, with Bridget. But I was curious what your impression just of the style of the film was.
Yeah, it's interesting because as you said, there's so much dialogue in this film, and there's not a lot of visual noir things going on. There's actually not a lot of high contrast lighting. There are a couple of scenes, Bogart waking up in the middle of the night is one of them, but there's not some of the things we would typically see in noir. There's no flashback. There's no voiceover narration. There's so many things that aren't there, but the characters themselves are so dark. And we've talked about the nature of how everybody lies in the film. That is a dark part of it. It's very cynical, and again, part of that has to do with the post-war World War I era. But what it doesn't have, in fact, it's funny too, because there are a couple of films made that same year that have a much more noir look to them. One of them is I Wake Up Screaming.
Oh yeah,
from the same year with Victor Mature and a very creepy Laird Krieger. Great noir actor. But that one is loaded with visually what we come to expect from film noir. And then obviously a big influence was Citizen Kane, which has a lot of high contrast lighting. So the Maltese Falcon kind of doesn't go into the visual film noir mode as much as we might think other films did, but I think the darkness is all in the characters. And as you said, the dialogue is, I don't know if you or any of the viewers have read the original book.
I haven't, no, but I plan to, but I'm sure you have.
I would encourage everyone to do that, because the dialogue is pretty much lifted straight out of the book. And what Huston does, like you said, because there's movement during the dialogue, Bridget fixing a fireplace, all of these different things that are revealing character. What's interesting, you've got the contrast with what they're saying and what they're doing. And sometimes those things are operating in contradiction to each other. So yeah, I it's not a typical visual film noir, but I think it's totally dark.
Oh, I completely agree. And a couple of things I read was that apparently George Raft was offered the part, and I'm like, that's what I thought. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of his movies, but I often find him very flat and one-dimensional. Whereas Bogart, he brought that sense of humor to it, that sense of cynicism and wit and darkness as well. That charm and I just don't think Raft could have done that. I think it would have been pretty flat. By the way you're reacting, I can tell you agree.
There's somewhere where Huston was asked about that, and I can't remember exactly what. I had to look it back up, but he was not a fan of Raft at all, and he specifically wanted Bogart for this role, and you can see why. I mean, they had worked together as when Huston was doing some screenwriting. Of course, this is his first directorial effort. Yeah, not bad for your first try.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I'm not a big George Raft fan, although he is pretty good in They Drive by Night is pretty good. Yeah, and there's some other ones that are pretty good.
Another thing I read, I didn't realize that this is actually technically a remake, because they had done it already a couple of times, and I didn't know that. Have you seen the other versions?
I have, and if you go online, I think you can still find Warner Brothers came out with a 3 DVD set, and it was the 1931 version, the 1936 version called Satan Met a Lady with Bette Davis, which I think she calls it the worst film she ever made.
Oh wow,
And
it's a good title
it,
though.
it is a good title, and it's largely a comedy. But
Hmm.
I think the mistake those first two films made is they were not faithful to the novel as Huston was. I mean, they're worth seeing. They're definitely worth seeing.
Ah, I see.
But yeah, they're just not faithful to the novel as much. One other thing about the novel that, um, again, I would encourage people to read the novel for this, because there's a story in the novel that doesn't make it into the film, and it really explains a lot about Spade's character, Bridget's character, and everything. And it's called the Flitcraft story. And when they were making the film, Warner Brothers decided that, this is a good story, but we can't have two long speeches in this film. Uh, so they decided that Gutman's speech about the tale of the Maltese Falcon was more of had more audience appeal, almost like a fairy tale. So that was essential. But the Flitcraft story is really interesting. I'll just give it to you really briefly. That Spade tells Bridget this story about a man named Flitcraft who was a real estate agent in Tacoma, and he went out to lunch one day, and he never returned. And Spade was hired to find out where he was. The wife had hired him to track this guy down. So he finally tracks him down, and Flitcraft said, I was walking to work as I always do, and I was walking by an office building where there was construction going on, and this steel girder fell down and narrowly missed me. And that incident resonated with him so much, and he thought, life isn't clean and orderly.
Hmm.
So I'm going to go reinvent myself. So he goes to Seattle, and he starts a new life, but it's pretty much exactly like the one he just left. And he married another woman who is exactly like his wife.
Oh
So
wow.
there's a part of that that's telling us that there's something about Spade's nature, there's something about Bridget's nature, that no matter where you are, your nature is going to go with you. You
Right.
can't
Oh,
you
that's
can't change
interesting.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it really opens up the film in a really unique way.
Oh,
But
interesting.
it really is helpful in understanding the motivations of the characters.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to read the book because it sounds really, really well. If you love the film, I'm sure the
Yeah.
you'll enjoy the
You,
book.
you will. You will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was anything else you wanted to mention about the film?
Oh, it's just that I again, like I said before, I see something new in it every time, and there's more to appreciate. And I think I appreciate just how good John Huston was.
Yeah. Oh
And,
yeah.
and I think it was because he was a writer first before he was a director, and he really understood how a good script worked, and he understood how a good novel could be translated to or adapted into a good film. And then once he had the script, as we talked about before, he knew exactly visually what things should look like, how characters should behave. And I think this is the greatest cast of all time to me. I mean, there are a lot of great films with a lot of great casts. It's hard to top this one.
Well, one thing about Houston, and I was listening to my friend. I'll give his podcast a shout out to the Projection Booth podcast, Mike White, and he had mentioned how many of his films are adapted from books, and I was like, oh yeah, that's true. It never dawned on me that literary influence and plays too. Um,
Mhm,
you
mhm.
know, I forgot about that, but yeah, he's actually there's actually quite a few of his films I still haven't seen. I still have to really kind of do a deep dive into Houston, but yeah, I mean, he's certainly a wonderful filmmaker. Could you tell us a little bit about your website and your YouTube channel?
Sure. Well, my website, I actually have a website, and I just started a Substack newsletter. So, and that is also called Journeys in Darkness and Light. So I would love for people to check that out. You can subscribe for free. There is some paid content, but I talk generally about movies, some current films, mostly about older films, classic films, film noir. And my YouTube channel, I do a lot of time, spend a lot of time talking about new releases on physical media, film noir, but you'll also find some of our library film discussions on that channel as well. So I'm there. I'm on Twitter and Facebook and all the usual places. even though they're not the greatest experiences like they used to be. Maybe I'm just getting cynical myself.
Well, I'll leave all the links in the description box below for where people can check out Andy's YouTube channel and his website and follow him on social media. And I'll also leave that great video you made of when you first saw the Maltese Falcon, which I really enjoyed. So I'll leave the link to that
Thank you.
in the description box as well. Well, Andy, thanks so much. This has been such a great treat to chat with you for the first time about such a great film. So please come again. Let's do it again sometime down the road.
Robert, it's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. I want to thank all of my members on Patreon. If you're interested in becoming a member of my Patreon, head over to the link, patreon.com/Robert Bellissimo at the movies for full details. Patreon is exclusive content that I create month in and month out. And as a subscriber, you are able to vote on polls and contribute to what I do on Patreon month in and month out. So head over to the link for full details. You can also leave a donation directly to my YouTube channel by pressing the thanks link, which you will find directly below the video frame. Just click on the thanks link and you can leave a donation there if you choose to. And lastly, if this is your first time here, please consider subscribing. It is absolutely free to do so by pressing the Robert Bellissimo at the movies logo. You will see it floating above my head in the top left corner to your top left. In just a second, just click on that and then click the bell in order to get a notification every time I release one of my new episodes. Also click the like button and leave a comment below. Let me know what you think of this episode. Also, you can also share the episode. All of these things are what produce traction to my YouTube channel. So I appreciate you watching and thank you again. And I will see you in the next episode.